What we've really come to learn, I guess, in the last few weeks is just how thin that line is in terms of that supply and demand.
Aaron Lynch, welcome back to Dukascopy TV. A pleasure to receive you once more.
Lovely to be here. Good to see you again, Natalie.
Okay, now we're talking about oil today, but it feels like we've been talking about oil for a really, really long time, and this sort of roller coaster ride that oil prices have been going on really for the better part of the last 12 months. Is there some sort of plateau in sight? Do we see some sort of levelling off in the near future?
Well, look, volatility has continued and will continue in this market. We've seen, the declines down to $26 a barrel. We're back up close to $50 a barrel, all against the backdrop of the supply and demand metrics that have been, the front page news for so long. We are, I think, starting to see some stability in terms of outlooks in terms of pricing, but overall I would expect to continue to see volatility. I know we're going to talk a little bit about the way that the US dollar plays into the value of oil, but the interest rate policy coming out of the FOMC at the moment remains unclear. We had a lot of expectations for 2016 in terms of interest rate rises, and therefore that hasn't occurred. It's unlikely to occur, and therefore asset allocation has moved back into crude. So while ever there's that uncertainty of all those dynamics that price crude oil, we are going to see that volatility.
Well, let's take a look then at some of the current drivers, and as if this situation wasn't kind of complex enough, we also had the added factor of the Canadian wildfires. Now, have we been able to reach a conclusion really in terms of what impact short or medium term that is likely to have?
Well, the good news is that those wildfires are coming to an end, so the expectation is that supply will come back on. We've also had some problems out of Nigeria in terms of their production. So what we've really come to learn, I guess, in the last few weeks is just how thin that line is in terms of that supply and demand, and the big expectation was there's a huge amount of oversupply. Well, really what we've learned is that maybe that isn't as big in practical terms. The other aspect as well is that we are continuing to see US domestic shale production dropping. So we do have a lot of those smaller producers in terms of overall supply, but while ever they remain uncertain, yeah, absolutely. But I think we will see that Canadian situation resolve itself soon enough.
And also, I mean, you already touched upon it, US dollar fluctuations. What sort of role is that playing kind of within this story also? Well,
look, I think we've reached that point where the supply and demand metrics, the market's prepared to ignore those now. We've known that there's an oversupply concern. The markets have reacted extremely. We saw, prices drop over $100 a barrel. I think what we've seen so far in 2016, moving from $26 to say $48 overnight, has in many ways been an asset allocation rebalancing, and that's been a US dollar story. As soon as I think the market got wind that the FOMC was unprepared or uncommitted to drive those 4 interest rate rises through, that's impacted the value of the dollar index. We've seen it come off a fair bit, and therefore what we've seen is commodities broadly. The Goldman Sachs index of commodities is up 40% this year. We've seen big moves across the board in soft commodities. We've seen precious metals moves. So I think you could say a large part of oil this year has purely been a US dollar play.
If we zoom out then from the oil space and take a look at the broader commodities sector, what are some of the commodities that are of interest to you at the moment?
Well, look, soft commodities and foodstuffs, I think we're getting back on that food security theme that we saw probably 18 months ago. We've got some big droughts in India. We've had some droughts in Brazil. We've seen certainly soybean prices up sort of 30% this year. We've seen coffee moving, sugar. We continue to hear about Australia being the food basket for Asia. But a lot of those big markets, some of the areas for wheat, etc. as well, have undergone a fair amount of dramatic weather events. So again, we are poised with that experience of weather events driving production, and therefore, the pricing going with that. So I think soft commodities will be a strong play in 2016. But you've also got your metals as well. You've seen gold and silver certainly getting stronger. There is some reports out recently that platinum could also move into a bit of a shortage into 2017. So, I think commodities remain strong overall, but certainly foodstuffs, they've been good moves already. We know when they move very strongly, but then they also can go quiet for quite some time. So there's been good moves. We'll have to see whether that continues.
Aaron Lynch, many thanks for the update.
Not a problem. Thanks. Good to see you, Natalie.
Certainly plenty more still to watch in the commodity space. Our many thanks to Aaron Lynch at OptionsXpress for his insights. I'm Natalie MacDonald. You've been watching Sydney Direct on Dukascopy TV. Until next time, it's goodbye.